How's everybody doing here this morning? Nice to see you. Joining in to make the most of the morning this morning. I like jokes about mountain. They're hilarious. It's Monday. Another magic Monday, isn't it? Monday comes. That's why I like to sleep. That's why I like to sleep on the week. And because sleep is for the weak. Morning, Fish. How does the astronaut plan an event? You plan it. How does an asteroid organize an event? You plan it. I'm going to sleep. You guys are waking up. Waiting on 14 packages. Ooh. How's the moon cut his hair? He clips it. Morning, cardboard. What's in the package? Why did the melons get married? Because they can't elope. Good morning, folks. Fish, Splendor. Anybody else who's tuning in from around the world here this morning? It's so good to see you. It's Monday, another magic Monday, right? The weekend comes and goes, and then the next thing you know, Monday shows its head and it says, I'd rather go back to bed. But the working man for the working man has got to get up and do the best that he can. Unless you're just getting off a night shift, then, well, then it's time for you to take a little rest and relax. Nice to have you here this morning. We're going to talk shop and talk magic card here this morning. Love the music, Broham. Cardboard delivering splendid cardboard. Ooh, indeed. I like it. Nice to see you here this morning. Do you like, folks, do you like tracking the prices of magic cards? Do you like buying products online? Is that something that you do? Where do you get your cardboard and cardboard accessories? Do you get them from the boogeyman? Do you get them from the general store, Walmart, Target? Maybe you buy them on eBay. Well, there's a lot of information out there, especially on the weekends. I like to catch up with the folks on the live streams, discuss what's going on, and see what's going on in the world of competitive magic with spoilers out and beyond. There's a lot of new iterations coming out of decks, card interactions, and discussion about new sets coming up, spoilers, and what cards are going to increase in price. Of course, the reserved list, another area of interest among Magic the Gathering players, folks who continue to buy cards on the reserved list seeking shelter from Reprint City. That's right. One city that Wizards of the Coast vacations to a little too often. I've got a cup of coffee here this morning. We're talking stocks, stock patterns, and the most essential stock chart patterns you need to know to be able to identify some of these reoccurring events that happen on these Magic the Gathering charts. Well, let's lay let's lay it up real smooth here this morning on the show. We're gonna warm up with a little bit of AI generated magic cards here this morning. That's what we like to do this morning, Monday. Get the bugs out here. Make sure the stream is working real nice. It's a card. If you haven't been joined us already once before, when we look at these AI generated magic cards, let's just have a look here and see what we can see. If the card is playable any way whatsoever, we're going to give it a pass. It's a magic card, functional, a magic card that works. A text on it meets all the criteria. Even if it's a little overcosted, you're going to hear this sound. It's a big sound. But if the card is not any gibberish on it whatsoever, we're not going to let it stick around for too long. We're going to fail it. You're going to hear this sound. That's the sound of the buzzing, cousin. All right. I'm going to listen while I pass out. Nice. Well, thanks for passing out with me, folks. Thank you. Anybody else feel the need to grab a little snooze? If you're behind on sleep, it's okay. You go ahead and do so. I'll take it from here. It's Monday morning. Great to be here with you folks. Thanks for joining me. Let's take a look at this one, the Soul Scout. Horseshoes, flying horseshoes. Looks like a bit of a Santa Claus here with this card. This is a 4/3 human scout. Flying, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may untap Soul Scout and gain control of target artifact or creature. Non-creature spell, you untap the scout, and you gain control of target artifact or creature. Seems kind of powerful. The thing with this is it's like the Kiki Jiki combo or Zealous Conscript, right? You can even go gain control of your own thing if you don't have something on the battlefield that you want to take of your opponents. You can always gain control of your own stuff. It's an interesting iteration of how this card works. I think this thing seems all right. Let's pass it. Let's pass it and move on to the next episode. Fair, overpowered, non-functional. I'd give this thing a fair, I think. Fair weather warning. Oh, it's not OP. Doesn't seem that powerful, really. Seems just fine. All right, what do we got here? Thanks for an awesome show. Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Nice to see you. Wherever you are, wherever you got me with you, I want to thank you for tuning in here. Let's sing you a song. Let's sing you an anthem. I'll sing you a lullaby as you head off to Sleepyville. Paying back the Sandman here. This anthem of the Ronin. Anthem the Ronin? Ronin. Reminds me of that video, that movie with the Austin Minis where they're doing some bank theft. Ronin? I think that's the movie. This saga cost you a black and a green and one. First proc on this saga is draw 3 cards and discard a card. Not bad. Twice. You get to do that twice. And then the third part of the saga says until end of turn, each non-black creature you control has base power and toughness 8/8 and has Shroud. Wow. For 3 mana. You get to draw 6 cards and discard 2. And then you get everything on your side of the board in 8/8 with Shroud? That seems really good. Let's pass that. How are we going to rate this? Fair, OP, underpowered, non-functional? I'm going to give it the OP, thinking that most people are going to side along that way. The 8/8 and 6 cards for 3 mana doesn't seem bad. If you can make a lot of 1/1s, you can easily upgrade them to 8/8s. Zillimancer Forax Sting. Zillimancer. Aw, don't be a zilly man. The star for 4. Artifact creature dragon. Flying fathomless devour? I don't know what that means, but perhaps it'll explain itself here in the card. Whether Zillimancer Forax Sting or whatever Zillimancer Forax Sting or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, you may tap target creature an opponent controls and put a 1/1 counter on a creature that player controls. Tap target creature and put a 1/1 counter on it, not your stuff. This makes improvements to the board and not on your side. You get a star. What is his power and toughness equal to? We don't know. Okay, I think that's where we got you. This thing, no way, no power, no toughness, just starry. Fair, underpowered, non-functional. Let's give it the junk tax. That's right. Abkaor. Let's go with the Vampire Berserker 1/4 here this morning. Because we're all about them abs. Doing crunches here this morning. Abkaor. This guy doesn't show us his 6-pack. How do we know he has abs? Well, he's a 1/4. He's red and 1 for a 1/4 Menache. It was 2. It was 2. It's not anymore. Now it's just 1. I don't know. This creature leaves the battlefield. Just straight up leaves. Abkaor? Well, it's ab day. He's got to get to the gym, perhaps. I don't know. Let's fail it. Seems kind of funny. New mechanic, right? Was 2. Why don't you ask him? Did you go to Magic Cards? Yes, Abkaor was there. He was. I was too. Non-functional. All right, and the Azorius Samurai. Not a samurai, not Azorius. This is more of a Borosius Samurai. The Azorius Samurai costs you red, white, and then another red or white for this Azorius horsemanship. And ship this one out of here. Get it out of here, Brody. Lifelink, and then lifelink again. Double lifelink and horsemanship. I mean, I think it works. It's a 3/7 for 3. That's quite the mana cost there. This sucker, I'd say it's almost functional. And then 4 bearable. This sucker is barely holding on. You got a cute card here this morning. All right, that's all we got. That's all we get. There is no more. That's it for the AI. Oh, get out of here. The AI, of course, making waves in the world of Magic the Gathering. You got artists upset about it. Wizards has not been necessarily 100% forthcoming with the use of AI to generate cardboard art, promotional information panels, and such. So there's little to no confidence that they will or will not continue to use the AI, saying they won't, saying they haven't, but it's pretty easy to. Can you pick out the AI generated art easily enough? There's something in the art called artifacts. There's little like unrealistic depictions that appear in the AI generated art. So people are able to actually figure out quite easily if the art is AI generated. Another way to do it is sort of look at the resolution of the photos. And if everything in the photo is high resolution or seems to be in focus, as if there is some kind of a zoom lens that gets perfect transparency and perfect resolution in both the front and the background, it's a pretty good indicator that it's something is AI generated. That's the way it works. Good morning, Billy of the Hill, the hilliest of Billies here this morning. Nice to see you. Scientists have discovered the world's largest bedsheet. But there'll be more on that as this story unfolds. But here on the morning show, we'd like to thank you for tuning in. MTG Hillbilly, do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards? Is there enough information out there, or is there just too much gall darn information? It seems like it's a lot to keep up with. Well, join me in the mornings here when we try our best up with the trends and see what's going on in the world of Magic the Gathering. With that being said, I've got an article with you discussing last week's weekly winners, the cards that took you out for dinner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Let's sit down and discuss this. The main man over at the stock desk, Arjun, is bringing us an article to read for our news stream here this morning. Why don't we tune in, take a little look at this article here together. Thank you very much. Let's have a see. Weekly winners. These are the winningest cards in the game of Magic the Gathering last week, as we saw it tracked on the demographic of the stock desk. Arjun bringing us something to think about. This one coming in at the end of the week last week, so I'd like to share it with you first thing on Monday when we get going here. As the previews of Karloff Manor are in full swing, and we are set to see more cards moving in price just because of it. Just because of it. There's also enough to talk about in constructed formats. Like every week, just in time for you folks to tune in and start your week, we want to talk about the Magic the Gathering cards that'll be the talk of the town. We had some interesting articles by Harvey McGinnis last week. Corey's Shocklands article was a good one, and as well as one card from, I think, Steve Heisler gave us some interesting perspective on the world. Hello, Yu-Gi-Oh! This week we launched, the stock desk has launched a Yu-Gi-Oh! Section for all you Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. You can definitely go and check it out. Let's take a look at this shrine. Let's enshrine this one to memory, okay, folks? Howdy do. All right, what's this? A rare from Odyssey Spiking, Nantuko Shrine. Well, what does the shrine do? Ah, the squirrels. Squirrels. Well, DJ Long is a fan of the squirrels. I've actually seen quite a number of people sit down and play squirrel commander decks like Chatterfang. Well, this enchant from the Odyssey block will cost you 2 green and 1. And it says whenever a player plays a spell, that player gets a 1/1 squirrel token onto the battlefield, where X is the number of cards in all graveyards, is the same name as a spell. I don't know if this goes in Commander. Could just be 1 in a lot of cases. But the Nantuko Shrine taking a tick up in price. The Odyssey rare spiking. Since 2001, it was 22-year-old version of a Magic card. And if you don't feel old yet, don't worry. The Brody is feeling it for you. This is the enchantment, and it generates 1/1 squirrel tokens. Holy smokes. Some people don't have socks older than this Magic card. This is 22 years old since Odyssey. Holy moly. Whenever you cast a spell, you get to create X tokens, where X is the number of cards with the same name in all graveyards. About a week ago, you could still find this card for about $1.20. And it was a really popular card. One more of the most driving factors in prices nowadays is Casual Commander. But an enchantment that cares about spells with the same name usually doesn't cut it in a format where you can only play one of each. Of course, there are cards like Persistent Petitioners, Rat Colony, and those are different colors, although they aren't really worth it. But with the Murders at Karloff Manor, a new card has arisen that can have any number of cards in a deck, and Slime Against Humanity is the card we're talking about. What's this? The sorcery, you get 0/0 green ooze creature tokens with trample, put a 1/1 counter on it, and X is 2, the total number of cards you own in exile and in your graveyard that are oozes and are named Slime Against Humanity, and a deck can have any number of cards named Slime Against Humanity. So another card that breaks the singleton format, even in Commander. We talked about cards like Dragon's Approach just a couple of weeks ago and how to play it. An interesting interaction if you want to play Commander with more than one version of a card. What else do we have here? AV Progenitor Ooze, the 2/2 Storming Ooze. It isn't legendary if it's a token. Enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other ooze you control. So if you can copy this, you lose the legendary. All right. And Thrumming Stone, spells you control has cast Ripple. I'm starting to get hungry. All this talk about Ripple makes me think of some ice cream. What do we got here? Slime Against Humanity. All right. Persistent Petitioners, a card that allows you to have more than one thing. Do you think there's a room to speculate on non-singleton commander decks? Perhaps. How many copies of Dragon's Approach do you need? Well, there are some cards that work well with it. Actually, I think we read an article here a couple of weeks ago. Good morning, Brain. Nice to have you here. In Murders of Karlov Manor, we're getting the new Ooze. It enters the battlefield with a number of counters on it equal to the 2 plus the total number of oozes and slime cards you own and exile in your graveyard. You can see that with these 2 cards, you can quickly generate a whole lot of tokens. So the question remains, does this combo go into an ooze tribal deck or a squirrel tribal deck? Because we can easily go with AV Progenitor Ooze or Chatterfang the Squirrel General. But see, that's what we're talking about. Chattering the fangs here this morning. It's also, as usually the case when new popular cards without number of card restrictions are printed, we're seeing some movement on Thrumming Stone. So this Odyssey card, Nantuko Shrine, up 249%. I think this is short-lived. It's probably a limited supply at the dealers. So it's very easy to clean out the inventory on a card like this. So we're probably going to see it tick up in price for a little while, but I can't see this being too long-lived. Perhaps the foil version will command an audience. It remains to be seen, but I don't think there's too much to worry about with this card. I don't know how much upside this thing is going to see beyond this. It's probably going to be fairly short-lived. How about this card? This is a card that was breaking in the Pabo set. Phyrexia All will be one. Morning, Brain. Nice to see you. Hillbilly Brain, Splendor. Nice to see you here, folks. Monday, right? Look at the chart on the Rot Priest. I know there was a lot of discussion around this card when it was printed and spoiled, and this is a card that people said, "What? How is this even possible?" You get a 1/2 with Toxic 1, so it deals damage in the form of poison counters. And whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. So this thing is just disgusting because it gives your stuff like, touch my stuff, you get poisoned. Not too difficult. It's also got Toxic on it, so if somebody targets your stuff, they just get a poison counter with this on the battlefield. And then from there, people can end up proliferating and trying to just give you more poison counters. Splendor says, my strategy is to buy out the bottom 5 stores on TCG of a card. Then I visit each store and explore their splendor. All right, I've decided to use the prices of regular print Rot Priest, which is the cheapest version and at least has gains in the past week. Okay, the version in the promo pack has been moving up a little bit faster, but when this card was previewed almost exactly a year ago, it quickly rose to $20. Oh, yeah, that's pretty high, especially a newly printed rare. It was supposed to be on the fabled insane new combo beats in multiple constructed formats, but indeed modern players tinkered with the Rot Priest in Storm decks where they tried to get as much and as quickly as possible. Eventually, it saw some play in Modern with an inclusion in the Infernal decks, Infect decks, and never really took off. But nowadays, it barely sees any play. I think people were expecting this card to do more than what it did. It's just a cute 1/1 that makes Infect. Brody, are you interested in a prophecy break? I think so. I got to jump in over there. I do. I noticed that. Are you? How full is it? I think we're. I think I saw the patron post saying that it's a third full or it's half full. I should get in on at least a pack. Why don't I do that? Brody's got to get in on a prophecy break. Half full. All right, count me in for at least a slot. Let me take a look at the Patreon. I'll send you a message over there. That's another reason I like joining the Dual Brain channel is because like some of these vintage box breaks. What did we say? Prophecy is about 20 years in the bag. 21. Do you feel old yet? Prophecy. There's some good stuff in there. All right, Rot Priest didn't find his way into a constructed format, but standard Bant Toxic decks are doing all right at the moment. And we've mentioned in the past few weeks since standard RCQ season is underway, the cards tend to move up a little bit faster than is usual for standard cards. Same with another patron. I'll definitely get in on that, Brian. Let me take a look over at Patron here. Half full on a box of Prophecy. That sounds like a good time. Got my coffee with me here this morning. If you want to feel old, Tempest is more than 25 years old. Yikes. Magus of the Moon. Yeah, it is funny because I think that if you stick with Magic for the long term, it's probably going to be okay. And I find that the longer you stick with the game, the better it is for you. If you're trying to get in and out of new sets, trying to flip it and make a buck, it's probably going to be very difficult and hard for you to come ahead in some of these as investments. Now, if you're here for the long haul, I'll tell you, I've been at this quite a long time, and I know folks like Add the Dual Brain have as well. But if you're thinking you're going to just jump into the Magic the Gathering market and start buying cards out and making profit, you might have another thing coming. You may end up sitting on those cards for a long time, so you got to be able to sit and wait. Like we discussed in some of the other streams, we're expecting a little bit of a downturn in the economy for the next 2 years. 2 years, we're in a rut. We're going to see a slow upswing in the economic sector for this is going to be a 2-year upswing till 2026. It's going to take a while to get out of here, but don't worry. Brody's going to be with you for the long haul. I'll be there for you folks discussing prices and talking strategy. And right now it's sort of an accumulation phase for anybody who's investing in stuff like reserve list staples, cards that are not necessarily speculations, but solid long-term pickups. I'm also speculating on a couple of cards myself from newer sets, two of them to be specific, the Echoing Deeps and Spelunking. Two cards that are under $1 or $1.02. I've been picking up copies of those, and that's something that I figure could be a long-term speculation in the next year or two, especially some foil copies. It takes me a lot to get excited about a foil rare from a new set that costs $1. So if you're going to be with us for the long haul, I welcome you to join us any day you can, where we talk prices, shop. But remember one thing, folks.
Buy low, sell high, that's my motto. I may just quit my job at the power plant and become a full-time stock market guy.
Remember to buy low and sell high, all right? The best strategy has always been buy and hold. Okay, let's face it. If you're trying to flip stuff, unless you're a dealer, you got a big reach and you got a vendor store, flipping stuff on the QT, trying to make a profit is going to be very difficult. So buying and holding long term is always the best strategy. You adjusted the volume. Did I? Oh, good. For the better or for the worse? Is it better? All right, I had a great opportunity to clickbait you here, but I decided to take the high road. The future site print of Magus of the Moon shot to $30, but you can still buy other versions for far less. It did give me a way to talk about this card because while the spike has had the hallmarks of a buyout, we do see the other prints moving upward. Time in the market is better than timing the market, yes. Magus of the Moon is basically a blood moon on a creature. It has the exact same ability, has the exact same mana cost, but is a 2/2 human wizard instead of an enchant, and both these cards drive and thrive in environments that the meta consists of greedy mana bases. A greedy mana base would refer to a deck's land configuration having a lot of non-basics. ambitiously including many colors and types of mana, utility lands, and non basics, especially being able to deny your opponents one, two, or even all colors they need to play their deck and can easily be a free win. You can turn one to Blood Moon some way or somehow. It can definitely shut off a lot of opponents' decks. Since Magus can also attack, it's a win condition itself, a 2-2 beater. Sounds pretty difficult. I got another 10 years to wait or more before my daughter appreciates this. Time in the market. All right, let's see. Since the Magus card can also attack, it's a win con on a stick, and if your opponent's unable to answer it, it has the downside of being removed more easily than enchantment. Well, it is a 2-2, fairly easy to remove. Creature type, easier to remove than the Blood Moon enchantment. That's for sure. Played in Rakdos Scam. You know, I was talking to boys the other day. They said, why is it called a scam deck? Because it basically says you don't get to play Magic. So let's look here. We got the Shoulder of the Apocalypse, Magus of the Moon, Dothy Voidwalker. This is a very good card, Dothy. Dothy's very good. It actually gets rid of cards permanently. They end up in the exile bin. Card I see played in EDH and CEDH quite a bit, and also in Legacy, a pretty good card. Dothy's going to be with us for a long time, I think. Grief. This is the one that strips your hand, and Bowmasters. Undying Evil, Colgan's Command. The Rakdos deck, quite popular in competitive formats. The cards he's playing multiple archetypes in modern, including Is It Aggro, Rakdos Scam, and Cascading Rhinos, among others. In some decks it played main board, but we often see copies in the side. Most played page, when we see that Mega's Moon is currently the number 4, but there's another format in which people love to lock their opponents out of the game plan, and that's Legacy. It's the number 21 most played card in Legacy. And funnily enough, we also see it in Cascade Rhinos, and furthermore, it is a popular card, especially in Legacy and lands like Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, and other accelerators can play Magus on turn 1, immediately disabling your opponent's fetch land. And cheap pickups for the week. So we got Magus of the Moon, Odyssey, Squirrel Enchant, making headlines, and these are the specs from the stock desk here this morning, saying they're coming in rather cheap. Considering the price of the last few years, many cards are a little cheaper than decades ago. Some notable cards still going down in price might even be cheaper. Archmage Emeritus. Penny stock. What's the Archmage Emeritus do? I wasn't a big fan of the Strixhaven block. I thought it was like a watered down Harry Potter set. That's what I think it was. But I didn't really like it too much. Maybe that'll change my mind on it long term if something piques my interest. But let's look at this wizard. Human Wizard 2-2 with Magecraft. If you cast a spell or copy an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. For 4 mana. So it's like Beast Walker or Beast Whisperer on a stick. And Cloudstone Curio. There's a 3 mana artifact that I think it is used in EDH for combo. Whenever non-artifact permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may return another permanent you control that shares a type with it to owner's hand. Yes, I think Curio lets you go infinite with mana rocks. Non-artifact permanent. Oh yeah, it doesn't bounce artifacts, but it can bounce lands. Curio? Curious, indeed. And Gisha's Son's Avatar. This is 7/6 trample. I think I buy listed this just a couple of months ago. I was quite high. It was like $20, so maybe I did okay. The Gisha's Son's Avatar, I got that from Ixalan, the original. Deals combat damage to player. You get to reveal cards at the top of your deck and put any number of dinosaur cards from the top of your deck onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of any random order. All right, thank you, Arjun, Mr. Arjun. I should hit you up on X to say thank you for running the article pages over at the stock desk. It's another beauty here. Nothing, not very exciting actually. It doesn't seem too exciting, and that's not a problem. I don't mind so much. Like a tame week is better than a bad week, right? Things crashing is better than things just being a little bit boring. That's the way life kind of is sometimes. You better, get used to having a bit of a non-exciting life. That way, when things do get exciting, it's more appreciative. When there's market moving, it's easy to get emotional and it's easy to make decisions, whether they're good or bad. Some people make decisions on a gut shot reaction, whether or not they're sure what's going on or they don't want to miss out on something in the market. So that's why it's good to kind of try and keep the emotions in check and make big decent decisions. Don't go too hard on something. I've gone hard on a couple of cards in the past, and if it doesn't turn out, you end up sitting on them for a while. Hopefully, if they're something decent like a reserve list staple, that it'll remain to be fairly decent long term. But that's okay. There's always time in the market. Let's see what else is new at the stock desk here this morning. I want to take a look at some other articles here for you folks here. Some of my favorite. Ooh, some player drama. Let's check this out here. Folks in the house for joining us. Thank you. It's nice to be here. We got Robert O'Brien's back. All right. Boring is best. It allows you to plan. Yeah, boring's not a bad thing, right, Brain? Boring can be okay. How you doing, Robert O'Brien? Nice to see you here this morning. Robert's back. The K-Town man. Probably working lots, I would imagine. Let's see if we can zoom in here. Morning, Robert O'Brien. Nice to see you. How's life been on your side of the planet? First time I've been checking in with you here on the new year. I was actually had a good chance to chat with Robert on the text box there last year. Robert's into sports cards and knows a lot about sports trading cards, serialized cards, and I had a pretty great discussion with Robert O'Brien about serialized cards last year. In fact, Robert shared some of his insight with me when discussing serialized cards, and I seem to remember some of that conversation was around basically the player, right? When it comes to serialized cards now, funnily enough, there was somebody selling serialized stickers for Magic the Gathering, like the gold foil ones, one of 500 stickers, been selling out online as a bit of a gag gift. But coming back to serialized cards and like what Robert and I were discussing was that one of the things that stuck in my mind. He said like a good player in a serialized card can mean a strong investment, can mean value. But if it's just sort of a meh player, like not a very notable player, doesn't score a lot or isn't one of the better players of the season, the serialized cards don't seem to do too much for them. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Robert. That was one of the interesting facts about discussion regarding serialized cards and coming into Magic the Gathering. Are we going to see more serialized cards in the future? I think so. But I think that people get really excited when they open a pack and they get a serialized card, but unless it's a really good one, it doesn't really stand up long term. Serialized Stormcrow, right? Who's collecting serialized Stormcrows? Probably nobody. Oh, my serialized one of one Stormcrow. Morning, Twiddler. Nice to see you here this morning. Anger Collections in the house, and I've got a little bit of drama for you folks here before we get into the movers and the shakers. We were talking about weekly winners for the week last week. If you got a chance to go out and play, or maybe pick some up online, maybe picked up some cards online. That's the general consensus from what I'm finding. Majority of sales being done online. I do like to pick up stuff in the showcase that from time to time, but let's take a look at this article here. I always like a good article in the morning. This is not give you too much grief about it here, but this is an article from MTG Rocks, another good read here this morning. Michael Superpacker, nice to see you. Just waking up and having that coffee. Good. Wherever you are, wherever you got Brody dragging along with you. If you got me on the back seat of the car, maybe next to the coffee pot, join me for a little MTG discussion here this morning. We're tracking prices, we're talking shop, and we're just getting started our Monday. Virality and invigoration is the way forward through this economy. Regional championships judge ruling creates massive player drama. One thing that players must always be on the lookout for, especially in more competitive environment, is cheating. Obviously, your opponents don't have your best interest at heart when the goal is to win the match. However, some players will take this too far and try to gain an advantage in a way that's not tournament legal. There have been plenty of disqualifications over the years for cheating, and unfortunately, these scenarios continue to happen today. Remember when people used to get banned from playing Magic the Gathering? Like they would get banned. Like there was a few folks that were just like repeat serial cheaters, and they get caught on camera and they'd be back out doing it again. There's like no repercussions. And it almost gets a little bit sickening until like these videos start circulating around the internet, and then people can kind of catch on to their shenanigans. But it's one way to lose friends and influence people, that's for sure. Humility is the key. If you can't lose gracefully, well, you're not probably going to not be a very good winner. Sometimes through both situations aren't as black and white as they might appear. This weekend at a regional championship in Ghent. I've actually been to Ghent, and it's a place in Europe. So I didn't realize there was some drama over at Ghent, but a very controversial situation transpired while a player was shuffling their deck on camera. The situation was brought to the attention of judges, and head judge ultimately ruled that no cheating took place, even though some of these events are streamed and they can look at the replay. This has got a lot of public outcry as well as general confusion over exactly what happened. Let's start by taking a closer look at it appears to happen and showcase this why it was rather controversial in the first place. I'm certainly there is shuffle cheaters, right? Total mana weaving is also a form of cheating too. Shuffling being the very, very most important part of the game. If you ask me, a good shuffle can mean all the difference, and that's why you can get screwed on online consoles such as Arena, because the shuffler don't shuffle so good. So if a good shuffle is important to you, let's read on. All right, what happened? We want to know. In what appears to be a typical match between Esper Reanimator and Amulet Titan, the debacle starts when Macro cracks his polluted Delta. We're at the point in the game where priority is down to just 5, or Piotr is down to 5 life. He's staring down at Grief on the other side of the board, but has multiple blockers available and had just searched for a copy of Urza's Saga with Expedition Map. From this information, it's easy to see just how close the match is. After all, a removal spell from Macro means that the Grief will be able to attack unimpeded once again. In this spot, every draw step matters. While cracking the polluted Delta, Macro appears to maneuver a couple of copies of Grief from his library to the top of the deck before ultimately placing his Shockland of choice into play. I'm bringing an auto shuffler to Magic Cons from now on, right? Like one of those those things they see at the bank with riffle shuffle bills together, right? Just like what they do at the casinos, right? Okay, then he proceeds to shuffle his deck in a way that only heightens the controversy of the scenario at hand before finally offering for Piotr to cut. Piotr obliges, simply cutting the deck rather than reshuffling. Oh yeah, you always take a shuffle of your own. All right, this is about as much as information as can be gathered from the video itself, but unsurprisingly, it's led to a ton of discussion about the final judge ruling, the potential for cheating to have occurred, and whether malicious intent took place to begin with. Well, do we have some video on it? I mean, we might want to watch it. What's this? No? Okay, so the guy's putting Grief to the top of the deck. Did anybody call a judge right then and there? Despite letting Canister cut, that is such an obviously fetched tutor. The concerning situation happened on camera was brought to the attention of the head judges at Legacy European Championship in Ghent. After a careful analysis of the situation, the head judge concluded no fraudulent activities were committed. Where much of the concern from a player base lies with the scenarios described above has to do specifically with the shuffling that took place, is rather clear that multiple copies of Grief were moved towards the top of the deck, and from there, the shuffling that takes place is not the clearest. As many players believe, the top card of the deck is now Grief doesn't actually move. This is where things could get very awkward. There have been instances in the past where players get disqualified for shuffling their decks when in reality they're just manipulating the top card again and again to try and take an advantage. Most typically, the advantage would be to draw something important in a sticky situation, then the fetch land can be a little bit of a problem. Fetch lands are great, but any card that lets your opponent pick up their deck and look through it, it's interesting to see some of these shuffle cheats on camera because folks will start looking at other cards other than a land. It could be a way just to see or what's in your deck, but Magic, everyone in Magic will from now on remember the Revolt of Ghent. Most typically, the advantage would be to draw something important in a sticky situation. A big part of the reason why it's important to allow your opponents cut your deck and or shuffle it. And similarly, if you want to make sure to shuffle your opponent's deck after they search their library for sure. From there, Piotr still doesn't cut Macro's deck. Still does cut his deck, but which would move the copies of the Grief to somewhere else in the library if they weren't sufficiently randomized beforehand. In this case, even though it was unclear that Macro will draw for turn, that players have brought up the fact that based on the board state, Grief is actually a pretty poor draw for the turn. As such, some players believe that the decisions to move the Grief to the top was done under the assumption that Piotr would cut the deck, thereby removing some potential mediocre cards that would be drawn in the situation, even though this might not change a ton of statistically. And a top card of the deck deliberately doesn't move on purpose. This is enough for many players to want action taken. Talked with HJ, an opponent, I think that's head judge, and convinced it was a mistake. Cheat seems either useless, Grief, bad draw, or overcomplicated. More plausible explains to me it's a habit of unclumping cards before you shuffle. You shouldn't, but many will with no malice. Ruling seems fair. One of the most egregious wrong rulings I've ever seen somebody that is so cut and dry to me. So even manipulating the deck and unclumpifying during a shuffle, not supposed to be doing a search, right? So what makes this difficult ruling to make from judges' perspective is that the idea is typically a showcase potential for malicious intent from the player accused of cheating. In this scenario, Piotr Macro's opponent actually spoke up at the circumstance and believed the ruling was made correctly. He states that while it's technically possible that the opponent cheated by manipulating the cards in their library, the more likely explanation is that they were simply unclumping cards before shuffling. Multiple players that talked to Macro afterward, including Piotr, came to the conclusion that nothing was intentional. Macro supposedly stated that he was indeed trying to separate copies of Grief that were attached while searching with polluted Delta. From there, he was simply trying to shuffle his deck like normal. It's unclear if the top card actually did move while shuffling, but entirely possible this is done on accident as Macro is shuffling rather quickly and nonchalantly. If anything, this showcases just how complicated some of these situations can be, and they even look like cheating in the first glance. Judges have a duty to uphold tournament integrity, and while trying to gather as much information about each case as possible, it ultimately was deemed that no cheating occurred. 14 best murders at Carlisle Manors card. Let's breeze through this here. What do we got so far? Honorable Pursuit. Hot Pursuit. What's this? A red enchant? Hot Pursuit enters. You suspect target creature an opponent controls. Just saying it is really cheating if you're unclump the like cards and then shuffle multiple times. Just saying, is it really cheating if you unclump the light cards then shuffle multiple times? I don't know. I mean, I think that's exactly what happened, Tommy. I think that's exactly what he is claiming had happened. Or even like unboxing your deck. That happens from time to time where you've got like a card goes in the wrong way and you're like, "Oh, I got to flip that around." Hard to know. I think even in a case like that, it's better just to like hand the deck to your opponent and get them to shuffle it, right? And this article ranked the best mergers of Karlov Manor cards. Let's just breeze through here. Honorable mention Leyline of the Guild Pack. I've heard a lot of talk about this card, and a lot of people are saying it's a 4-mana do nothing. I mean, it doesn't do anything other than give each non-land permanent you control all colors and lands or every basic type. So it allows you to fix your mana base and get procs for creature color matters. Morning, Benson. Nice to see you here, buddy. Hello there. All right, so we got that. The ley line. One comment is, why is this not legendary? It seems like it should be, but it's not. It's a turn zero. It's a turn zero mana fix. It is. A typical ley line mechanic comes into the battlefield if it's in your opening hand for free. Steam Core Scholar, Flying Vigilance. Is this guy wearing a fedora? He is. Lots of fedoras out there. When some Steam Core Scholar enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an instant or sorcery or a creature with flying. A 2/2 Flying Vigilance? That's weird. It'd be not too bad if this had flash. I think it could be one better. It's a weird detective. All right. So that one definitely under the radar. Conspiracy Unraveler. 7 mana 6/6. Sphinx Detective. You may collect evidence 10 rather than pay the mana cost for spells that you collect. To collect evidence 10, exile cards with a total mana value 10 or greater from your graveyard. So, is that Delve? Yeah, it's sort of like a Delve. That's what the collect evidence is. My first build in the Explorer will be using this ley line to win with Happily Ever After. The problem with letting your opponents touch your deck is they can shuffle to screw you too. That's true. We did see that on a big cheat. Big cheat. And I think a lot of people are nervous for calling a judge in a sticky situation. Like, people got to just like get over that stigma of like, I'm going to call a judge because people don't want to be accusatory, right? But wouldn't you rather say something than have somebody actually sit there and shuffle all your lands to the top of your deck and then hand it back to you? That is even another thing that's happened. DJ Long, how you doing, buddy? Forensic Gadgeteer, well, Dalkin Artificer Detective, another one of the top 10 cards in the Murders of Karlov Manor. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you get to investigate and activated abilities. Artifacts you control cost 1 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana cost. This is actually really darn good. It almost seems like a power artifact type of effect. Wow, this is really good. This will make your food tokens cost less to crack, your clue tokens cost less to crack, so that, the cost of cracking a clue goes down to 1. This is actually very good. I like this card. Out of the cards we've seen so far, I think this is probably one of the better ones. You're at work, I'll be away, but I'm supporting by lurking. That's right. There's nothing I like better than a good lurker in the morning and a cup of coffee. Thanks, Brain. Appreciate you. We'll get back to you on the old box break. So this is essentially another way to break basalt monoliths. Of course, the Gadgeteer is a strong inclusion for any deck. Case of the Rans. Is it legendary? It is not. So you can have multiple copies with it. Yes, it goes infinite with basalt monolith yet again, or grim monolith yet again, right? Besides being another way to break that card, this is another way to make that card. Case of the Ransack Lab. This is a saga? No, it's a case. Okay, so enchant. For 1 blue and 2, you get instants and sorceries rebated for a meager 1 mana. 1 mana cheaper. Dissolve your, and then you dissolve. If you've cast 4 or more instant and sorcery spells this turn. Okay, so every time you got to do this to move it up, and then solved whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw the card. More card draw on a stick with a rebate for other spells. What's everyone's thoughts on assembling easy infinite mana in EDH? I mean, it's definitely a way to do it, and I've been told that the best way to do it is to have somebody like Kenrith on the battlefield, something that has multiple abilities. Multiple, you got to have something to do with it, right? Thoughts on assembling infinite mana in EDH? It's definitely valuable, but you got to have something to do with it. That's why Kenrith is so darn good. Some people get off my case. Some people get upset when you go infinite. I don't. I think it's neat. So here's a shifting case. Beginning of your upkeep, you surveil 1. And if there's 15 or more cards in your graveyard, that solves it. 2, solve it. And whenever you cast a non-legendary creature spell, copy that spell. So this could be something in like the Sisay deck or the Legendary Matters, right? Oh, non-legendary creature, cast a spell. What are my thoughts on infinite mana? I think it's part of the game. You should be allowed to go infinite. I mean, on casual commander, maybe don't do it on turn 2. Was this Anzrag, the Quake Mole? Legendary God Mole? Mole God. Look at this thing. It's kind of funny. Look at it. It's got that gnarly nose flippity thing. When Anzrag, the Quake, becomes block untapped, each creature you control after this combat, you get an extra combat step, and then it must be blocked each combat if able this turn if you pay 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the multiple attacks is getting really popular, I'm seeing. There's lots of ways to do it with this combat celebrant technique. Cards like Mirage, Fury of Akum. There's a few ways to get landfall to give you multiple attacks. And then this Azrag, this moly mole. Yes, definitely some mole happening here this morning. The come for the Magic the Gathering, stay for the spicy commentary. That's what I say when you join the channel or when you sit down to play. There's always going to be some spicy commentary going around the table. People target combo players. I play combo anyway, right? Chop it up and make some guacamole. Come on, give me some mole jokes here this morning. I need it. I love it. Love that card, but it will be forever called guacamole, right? Give me your best mole joke here this morning, folks. Case of the locked hothouse. All right. Interesting. As long as there's nobody locked in the hothouse while this thing gets locked, you may play an additional land each of your turns. I can dig it. I'm playing lands. I mean, I like lands. Let's play more. Let's get spelunking effects, right? Play additional lands, draw additional cards, put lands onto the battlefield untapped. To solve this, you could control 7 or more lands, and then you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and then you may play lands and cast creature spells and enchants from the top of your library. Mole. All right, let's see here. Give me your best mole joke. Lonus, genetics expert. This reminds me of one of the doctors that was very popular in the last couple of years, right? Well, I don't know how much I trust this card. It's a snake elf. A couple of references here. Any genetics experts out there? Could be a snake elf detective. Evolve whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Lonus. Investigate that many times. If you sack a clue, put a 1/1 counter on another target creature you control. Let's see here. You reenact the crime. Did Lonus make that song? I got 5 on it. Yes, it is. I got 5 on it. Quite possibly. I don't know, Tommy. I know the song, though. All right, reenact the crime. Let's not reenact the crimes of just this last couple of years, right? Ugh. Your Honor, I object. You can't object. He's in his middle of his opening statement. Well, I object anyway. Exile target an online card in the graveyard that was put there from the graveyard anywhere this turn. Copy it. You may cast a copy without paying. It's Lunas. Close enough. Final World Phantasm, 1/4 for 1 and 1 blue and 2. You get a flash flyer, and then it says during each opponent's end step, you may cast spells as though they had flash. Okay, this thing is fine. You know, a card like Born Upon the Wind is backbreaking. It's so good. It lets you flutter above the stack, right? What kind of music do moles love? Here we go. Hit me with it. On the trail. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tab. This is good too. They like underground. On the trail, this is a good card. You draw your second card a turn. You can put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tap. This seems good. I'm going to have to get a copy of this for the lands deck. Why was the rodent disinfected? I don't know. We're doing mole jokes here this morning. It was moldy. Oh, right. I like jokes about mountains a little bit because they're hilarious. All right, and no more lies. All right, give it to me straight, folks. I'm sick of the lies over at those other places that you may tune into. Right, just feeding you a bunch of garbage. No, garbage counter target spell until unless its controller pays 3. If that spell is countered, exile instead of putting it in a graveyard. Not a bad card. Not as good as Dovin's Veto, but still pretty decent. It gets rid of stuff, exiles it. I mean, the exile ability is very good. Sometimes spells just to keep coming back, and this is a way to make sure they never come back to hurt you again. Hylox Volt Strider. Striding. Look at the stride on this one. 4/4, is it? Artifact vehicle, 1 red, blue, and then you collect evidence 6. It becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Whenever the Volstrider attacks, you may cast an sorcery spell from among cards exile with it. If that spell will be put into a graveyard, put it on the bottom of its owner's library instead. Oh, it gets back stuff. That's pretty cute. Archdruid's Charm. You get to search your library for creature or land, put it on the battlefield tapped. Or you put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control that deals damage with power. Fight mechanic, meh. An exile an artifact or enchant. Just a utility. This is a mono green, right? Good lord, this seems dope with extra turn spells, right? Which one? Which one you want to take extra turns with? Probably this one? Narset can play that vehicle too. Yes. Oh, and the Strider. Access denied is good. The Strider. You folks hitting your stride here this morning? You know what time it is. It's time to get some of the sweet moving of your feet here on the morning show. Any of you folks who are tuning in this morning, I'd like to thank you once again for joining me here on the morning show. It's the working man for the working man, doing the best that I can to bring you some Magic the Gathering activity, some entertainment, and a couple of mole jokes here this morning. This is the part of the show where we gotta move and we gotta shake in our seats because it is time to look at the movers and the shakers list here on Monday to start your week. Monday, January the 29th. Where does the time go? It's almost the end of the month. Holy moly. We got friends in the chat here joining me. I had a good weekend. I hope you did too. If you were on the way to work, maybe you're already there. Whatever you do, I want you folks to know one thing. Whatever you do, you are an important part of the world, and you are appreciated equally among every human on planet Earth. Everybody gets the same amount of stock, same amount of credit, same amount of everything. You are important. Your work that you do is valuable, and no matter how small it may seem at some times, what you do makes a difference to other people, and the way you do it means a whole lot more than what you do. So do it with a good attitude and love and compassion in your heart wherever possible. Even if it's digging a ditch or having a hard day, maybe you're serving coffee, try and keep your chin up. It's the way we're going to get through this slump of an economy together. So let's take a look at these movers and shakers here this morning. Let's try something. All right. Monday, Modern Monday. Esper Sentinel. Man, this card's $30. It's really good. This is a tax card. I see it played in EDH and CEDH. This thing is so good. It's almost like another version of Ristic. 1 white mana. So they can be played on turn 1. There's no doubt this is a Modern Horizons card that costs you $34. Very good. This card's going to stay on the price hunt for some time, I do believe. $34, a white, and whenever opponent casts their first non-creature spell a turn, draw a card unless that player pays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. So it's going to cost you 1, just based on face value. If this thing gets bigger, then it's going to cost more, and then non-creature spells are going to get you all the draw triggers. It's sort of like, this is like right on par with first turn Mystic Remora or first turn Ristic Study. Pretty good. How does he scratch his nose? That's a good question. That's going to be really tough. Old knife hands, right? I remember I did an art. It was like Broderi knife hands. Yeah, I wouldn't want to. Wouldn't want this guy to like. Maybe he has a job in a kitchen, right? How does he scratch your back? Hall of the Banded Lord. Let's take a look at Esper Sentinel's chart here for a minute. I want to see how smoothly this thing has been moving. I think it hasn't really made. Yeah, it's just a steady chart, right? This is nothing crazy. There's no real spikes here. This is just like a west to east easy tide of a seesaw sort of a pattern. Brody's having trouble with his pencil here this morning. Let's see here. Very smooth. Very smooth. I think we're going to see this thing possibly just keep going until it sees a reprint. This is definitely reprint equity. There's no doubt in my mind. This thing's going to be going sideways for some time. Decks using it, lots of modern Hammer Time playing it, and lots of Commander decks. Thopter combo and Hammer Time. That's where you're going to find this. All of the Bandit Lord. Wandervine Prophets. What's this one coming up? 10% for the Hall of the Bandit Lord. It enters play tapped. You pay 3 life, and you add a mana of you add 1 mana to your mana pool, and if it's spent to cast a creature spell, that creature has haste. Ooh, I like it. This is like the Beside You for creatures, but it gives it haste. I like these cards, like the Cavern of Souls, the Beside You, Who Shelters All, and the Hall of the Bandit Lord. I need to get a copy of this. It's a pretty good card. $13? What's it been doing, and where is it being used? Something I never really noticed. Quite playable. You want to give something haste. Actually, this card, even though it's on the movers and the shakers list, look at this here. It was as high as $20. And then it softened down to about the $5 or $10. Now it's only taken a slight tick up in price. So this card is actually, even though it's on the movers and the shakers list, not a bad time to pick this up because it has had higher upsides before. There is copies available, one for $8 if you want to find it over on Card Kingdom. This is definitely a card. Yeah, even though it's spiked up and it's made the shakers list, it's not out of reach. You can still get it fairly cheap. Where is it being used? Kalia the Vast, Krenko Mob Boss. Yeah, anything that's going to make tokens, especially with Krenko and all these other commander decks, including Phage, Lara Croft, Yargle, and Ilarg, the raise board. He's got haste anyway, so why does he need more haste? Wandervine Prophets. Merfolk, always a good choice, isn't it? Don't people love Merfolk? I don't mind Merfolk, but these Lorwyn foils actually are quite good. Let's look back at some of the Lorwyn cards and see what the foil version of this is. I do try and pick up a copy of Lorwyn cards every now and again. Yes, the foil on this one, the multiplier is $60, so it's quite good. What does this one do? Champion of Merfolk. When it comes into play, sacrifice unless you remove another Merfolk you control from the game, which when this leaves play, that card returns to play. When Wandervine Prophet deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it and take an extra turn. 6 mana for a 4/4. You got a Champa Merfolk. Ilarg doesn't have haste? That's what I mean. I think Ilarg already does have haste. He's a big bore. He likes to bore you out. I got a sweet painted altar of this card years ago off eBay for $7. So why is this card getting so much attention, right? Look at this. It's got 2 legs up in price. 2 legs up in price. This card's been very popular. Decks using it, very popular for people to buy this. Lots of people want to champion a merfolk. Perhaps they want to take extra turns. Well, Kunama, Tyrant of Araska, is playing it. Nakabal, the Surging Soul, and Alia, the Archmage Ritualist. Oh, look at all the Bant decks playing it. Of course they are. He doesn't? Ilarg. Let's see here. Ilarg's a bloody boar. Let's take a look at Ilarg. The raised boar, right? Let's take a look at Ilarg. Possible I made a mistake. Trample. That's what he's got. When he attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand on the battlefield tapped and attacking. Return that creature to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. When raised board dies, put it into exile from the battlefield. You may put it into its owner's library third from the top. Okay, so Ilarg needs some haste. Is that what we're saying? Get the 6/6, the boar boy, and then you get to put a creature card into your hand. That's the one that gets haste, though. The other one. Since you make multiple combats now due to champion, it works. I like it. He doesn't have haste, so then you need the Hall of the Bandit Lord to do it. That seems like a reasonable expense, 3 life, to give the boar haste. We'll take it. Does it enter tapped? It comes into play taps. Okay. So the land is a turn behind. The One Ring? I think we've seen enough of the One Ring. Holy smokes. I got to get myself a copy of this. It's not going anywhere. I don't think the One Ring is going down anytime soon. Magus of the Moon, another card that we talked about earlier this morning on the morning show. This was part of the weekly winners last week and saw a pretty decent uptick, and it's very, very popular. It's easier to remove than a Blood Womb, but I mean, of course, in the painter decks, in the prison decks, this is a card that sees play. Blighty Boy, the Blightsteel, Colossus here. $41. This guy's got Infect. This is like played in the Oath of Druids deck. I know we're doing Modern Monday, but like, is this still played in Modern? Perhaps Trample, Infect, Indestructible. You want to cast this off the Bandit Lord and swing and give it haste. That would be nice. If it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, it's got this replacement shuffling effect. Thoughts on City of Brass? It's a great mana fixer. I remember a 90s World Champ deck use it. City of Brass, very good. I don't know how you know this, Benson, but I ordered a copy of City of Brass this weekend. I did. Huh. That's a card I picked up over the weekend. Benson, you're a mind reader. How do you know this? I'm getting a little bit spooked out. I did order a copy of City of Brass this weekend. I did. The first edition. Which edition? Arabian Nights edition. Yes, I like it. It was very playable. I mean, I had about 4 copies of it kicking around here. One original and like an 8th edition and maybe a Chronicles edition, but it seems to be included in every single EDH deck. CEDH deck has it. I think City of Brass as a land card from Arabian Nights is going to never go anywhere. It's going to be very popular, and it's going to be like the blue chip of the City of Brasses. Well, I mean, there was one at Face to Face, so now there isn't. If you're wondering where it went, that's where it went. Lands are always a good addition. And here's the thing, like if you're going to build a couple of EDH decks, you're going to need multiple copies, right? So I mean, maybe this is just my way of fixing up my mana base for EDH decks. What do we got here? But I've been slowing down on picking up reserve list stuff. Good morning. Hi. That's right. All right, let me see. Is nobody playing it? Oh, Mono Black Coffers. I guess Coffers is playing it. Mono Black Coffers. This is a way to ramp out the 10/10 Infector. Let's see what's in this deck list real quick here. Dothy the Voidwalker, Oakrish Bowmasters, and Sholdred, Karn the Great Creator, Profane Tutor, Cling to Dust, Inquisition, March of the Wretched Soul, Thought Seas, Damnation. No grief. Surprising. All right, Blightsteel Colossus, Blighty Boy, City of Brass. Here's the city. Lots of versions of it, but I think that the first one is going to be long term. I think this might even see a reprint. There's lots of gold bordered versions of the card. There's definitely 8th edition, the 7th edition foil. Always takes the cake is $1,200, but I think this one here, the OG one, is always going to command some kind of a price. And then all these other different cards from Double Mastered, seeing plenty of reprints, $20. Not a bad price for picking it up. Sold out. This is a card that's definitely going to see. It's better than Mana Confluence when Yasharn is on the table, because this deals a damage, and then Mana Confluence makes you pay life. So I was playing Yasharn in the Land Stacks deck in the Milk of Magnesia deck over the weekend, and I found that with Yasharn on the board, it turns off Mana Confluence. So City of Brass is actually a little bit better. It's a little better if you can't pay life. Sad that many of my friends don't have time anymore to play, so I don't buy much. Football doesn't help either. Sorry to hear that. You can always find a game online, I find, over on Discord, depending what you're playing. Lash March of the Ants. Can't be countered. Draw cards equal to the greatest number of creatures. Greatest toughness among creatures you control. Then put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. 8 mana. You know, a part of me wants to play just like mono green CED. Try and make a mono green EDH deck that just is like ramp Drazi. Like if you're going to ramp into anything, I think ramping into Eldrazi is the way to go. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but green Eldrazi was really good, especially in, well, it was popular in Arena. Like, you know, turn 3 or 4 Ugins doesn't seem bad. Mono green, hella fun. Yeah, and let's face it, when we're playing mono green, we're not ramping into green stuff necessarily. We go ramp into some colorless Eldrazi. And then I took a look just to see Rofalos, Emissary of Trest. He's a green dork that adds mana for each forest you control. He's banned in Commander for good reason. I do want to try mono green. Creatures you control have Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, Haste, Protector from Black, and Pro Red. Well, this is quite a card. How do you remember that? All that. The Chroma's Memorial. And here's a card I need. I want this card. I want a copy of all the Evoke elementals. This is good. A, B, C, D, Elemental P. This card flashes in with reach, and it's got a 3/4 body. Enters the battlefield, and then you get to have one player put all the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order, so it's flash speed. You too can deal with those pesky graveyard recursion decks. Why not? What's the chart look like for this guy here? For the endurance, it's actually come down a bit. I mean, it's on the movers and the shakers list, but it's something to be desired. I still want a copy of this. I was hoping it would go lower, maybe looking for a reprint or trying to open it in a pack. Endurance, eh? Deck's playing it well. It's played in Legacy and also Commander and Modern. A decent card in the Elemental. I definitely want to get a copy of this Endurance card for my deck. All right, why don't nurses like crayons? Well, sometimes they have to draw blood. And how much do I love crunchy tacos? From my head to my tomatoes. That's it. That's all, folks. Speaking of endurance, my endurance has run out. It's time for me to hit the bricks. I got to head to work, and if you hear that sound, that means that you too are getting special thanks for joining me here on the morning show. Do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards? there enough information out there, or is there just too much information? Let's read some articles. Let's track the prices together. Let's see what's moving and what's shaking in the morning. I like talking to you folks, starting my day, and vigorously moving forward is the way forward. And don't forget to hit that like button on your way out the door. Brody's got to hit the store this morning. Get off to work. Do something to move the economy. Gotta make a move here. It's Monday. Time to kick the dog, right? Say goodbye to the weekend. It's the end of January. Amazon Temu have 1 million options for table mount cameras. Thank you, Brody. Have a nice day. I appreciate you, Michael Superbacker. Thanks for joining. Tommy Siddons, DJ Long, Dual Brain, Benson, Cardboard, Splendor, The Hillbilly, Hot Dice. If I missed you, wow, don't take it personally. Hella fun. The Crackening Games is here. And Tommy Siddons, Twiddler, Benson, Titanta, man. I didn't even see you come in here. Thank you. Let's get a little sweet Yaz flute here this morning. My friend Ron Burgundy.